So what does a realistic budget to move to France look like? I think once you understand how French visas work, this is the first step. The actual, many times, usually the second question that comes up is like almost immediately, how much does it actually cost to move to France? And if you've searched for answers online, you've probably noticed something a little bit frustrating, and that's everybody gives a different number. Some people say that you can do it cheaply, others say it's like super expensive. It's Europe. France is one of the most expensive European countries. It's not. And other advice, it just sits on like one extreme or the other. I'm sure you've seen this before. And so I want to talk about how, what a realistic, like a real budget, true budget to move to France actually, what this actually looks like. So, like, not a number and not to give you a shortcut, but to discuss what does it take to make a budget realistic in the first place, right? I think this is the reason why money feels confusing or it feels uncertain. Money, it feels uncertain and confusing in this process because it's almost like it's discussed out of context, money for your budget. You'll hear things like, you need X amount of euros, you need, I moved with way less. It depends on the city. All of these statements are valid. And all of those statements can be true and still not help you plan anything meaningful. Because for me, a budget or a true budget or a realistic budget, it only makes sense when it's tied to your specific situation, to your baseline. And so without that kind of like context, numbers don't create the clarity that you need. It just adds to the noise. And one thing that kind of like trips people up or they get mixed up about early on in this whole process is that the idea of budgeting for a move to France is mostly about savings. It is not. Savings matter, but it's not only about savings, right? Savings alone don't help to tell you the full story, and savings alone don't help you to create your realistic budget to move to France. I'm so burpy these days. Whew. Sorry. Remember, I've said it several times in like some of my past videos. France, France administration, they aren't just looking for whether you have money, i.e., your savings. But in the process, in your application process to move to France, to move abroad, it's they're looking at whether your situation appears like stable and sustainable. This is what they're looking for. And that's like a distinction that it matters, and I think many people don't realize how much it matters, right? So be understand that France isn't looking for whether you just have money. Like savings is important, but it's about, is your savings on paper and your situation, does it appear stable and is it sustainable? And that's what I mean about realistic. Like, I'm not saying, I don't mean to choose your most pessimistic budget, which is like the highest cost ever, worst case scenario. I mean, your realistic budget should be grounded in your situation. And your budget accounts for the fact that things does not happen instantly. This is your realistic budget and this is your true budget. If it doesn't, a realistic budget accounts for the fact that things don't happen instantly and they don't happen linearly, right? There are delays. There will be transitions. There are periods where the systems just aren't fully in place yet. Like, you're moving to France, the bureaucratic systems of France will not be fully functioning. So there will always be delays and all of these like transitions. So don't underestimate this cost, right? And many people do it. Many people underestimate this kind of like transition period, this cost in their budget. And it's not because they're careless or anything. It's for me, oftentimes they assume that things will line up perfectly, and they won't. They rarely do. Most online budgets or many online budgets focus on lifestyle budgeting. So accounting for rent, food, transport. These three, your top three, your big three. And these numbers are like easy to find. They're not irrelevant and they're not unimportant, but they're easy to find out. And for me, they're not what creates the most stress. What creates the most stress in a budget is what's usually overlooked, and it comes from that in between phase. The part where things overlap instead of kind of like replacing each other neatly. So I have my savings, I get a job, I get my pay, I pay my rent, da 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 da, like this. This is like that, the in between phases of those that people that you might underestimate or ignore, or many budgets ignore. That's where the stress, most of the stress is. And that's where the stress usually comes from. It's in those parts that overlap, that don't overlap, or they don't cleanly like replace each other. And that phase and those in between looks different for everyone. So it depends on your situation of how that will look. And so it's important to know this. And so this is why like just copying somebody else's budget rarely kind of like bring you the relief that you might need or give you the realistic budget that fits your specific situation. And I want to be very clear here. Understanding why budgets fail is not the same thing as like knowing what your budget should be, right? I think like knowing that transition period exists doesn't tell you how long yours will be. Knowing that timing matters doesn't tell you how much runway you're going to need, how much cushion you're going to personally need for your budget. And so, yeah, knowing those things explains the problem, but it doesn't really like resolve it. And from an HR perspective, just with me working in French HR, sometimes I see it's not financial irresponsibility or anything, but sometimes I see like a timing mismatch where people assume that your income will start smoothly, like I said before. They assume like, oh, you're gonna get paid, etc. in this way, right? And sometimes they assume like the income, salary timeline is the same, and it can be very different in France to another country. Like for example, in Jamaica, let's take Christmas time. In Jamaica, Christmas time, you get paid super early. You get paid like on the 20th of December or something like this, the 18th, right? France does not care about that. Your salary will come at the end of the month because it's the end of the month. Or you have systems where salaries, France is usually a once per month, but there are many countries that have a fortnightly payment, so semi-monthly, so twice per month they're paid. So timing, oftentimes there's like a timing mismatch in the budget because they're not understanding the cultural context. Nor their particular situation. So you might assume that income will start smoothly. They might assume like systems are going to just like open immediately. Your bank account is going to be like, yeah, 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 so easy. No, bank account, nightmare. Or you might assume that transitions are going to be like short. Oh, it's just going to be like a few days. That might not be the case. And when those assumptions like don't hold true, that's when like even like your best budget can feel like really fragile and it just starts to break down because of, yeah, again, those transition in between periods were underestimated, and that leads to the stress of your budget. And like I'm trying not to be I don't want to be like pessimistic about this, but this is a lived reality in terms of like moving abroad. And you have to account for this lived reality to understand what your true realistic budget will be. I just want you to be like clear, right? Because for you and for many people and for you, money isn't just about like affordability. Like it's about like responsibility. Like, can I afford this? I'm sure you're asking this question. Can I afford this? Does this budget respect the life that I've built, my savings, what I want out of my life moving forward? Yeah. Like a realistic budget helps you to like push you forward in a responsible way that safeguards the life that you want when you move to France, right? It kind of like steadies you. And so it's important to understand and to know the true budget and the true cost based on your situation. For me, when a budget is grounded in reality and grounded into in the reality of your specific situation, like your timeline becomes more clear. It's like less abstract. Your decisions become like calmer, and your anxiety like lowers. It drops quite a lot when you have a realistic budget that's grounded in the lived reality of your move to France, or the like a good possible reality of your move to France based on your specific situation. Because you stop asking, is this even possible? And you're like, well, when does this make sense? This is what you start asking, like, when does it make sense to move? Because now I have my budget. This is how much I need to move towards. This is how much I currently have. And now you're able to start plotting, like, okay, what's the next? So this is a timeline that makes sense for me to make my move to France. And that shift really, I think, relieves a lot of the tension and uncertainty around moving abroad and moving to France. Because like now you would have already understand your visa clarity, which I've spoken about in several of my other videos that you can check out. And here you understand what makes a realistic budget. And that clarity matters, but it's still different from understanding and having clarity about what applies to you, right? Remember, a realistic budget isn't universal, it's personal. And that's a part that many people can't solve on their own, no matter like how much they research, because you need insider info. You need to understand the lived reality of the place that you're moving to. And that's why money becomes like this second pillar after understanding like visa clarity. After understanding your visa path, money becomes like the second pillar because it kind of like stabilizes everything else. And so in the workshop that I'm hosting, we don't work only with averages or estimates. We look at your visa path, your timing, and your financial reality to translate that into a realistic budget for you and into a number that actually makes sense for you. So if you've been planning with guesses or you still feel uneasy about how you can afford your move to France, this is usually why, because your budget isn't realistic enough for your specific situation. I'll link the workshop info below that you can check out, because this is what we cover and what we discuss. And in my next video, I'll talk about timelines, because once money is clear, time becomes much easier to plan, right? So you have visa clarity, how to get clarity on your visa pathway from my video. We've just talked about what makes a budget realistic. And in my next video, we'll talk about timelines, right? And if you really want to understand how to implement this for your specific situation, then you have the link to my workshop below. I'm Diedre, and I help women move abroad, move to France, to design the life that they love. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao.